Let's react to what head coach Fran Brown had to say in his first spring press conference.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And on this episode, we are going to listen to and react to almost everything head coach Fran Brown had to say in his first spring press conference. More on the almost part in just a moment here, all right? If this, for whatever reason, runs long, that's okay. We'll have a part 2, perhaps even a part 3 of this podcast. As far as this part is concerned, you will hear Fran Brown's thoughts on the differences between last year and this year in spring ball, as well as how he's managing the losses of some big-time players from a year ago, right? Like Kyle McCord, Oronde Gadsden, Fidel Diggs. Those guys are gone. In comes new blood. You'll hear Fran Brown's answer to that question. Now, the reason why I said almost everything is because I skipped over the first part of the press conference. Why would you skip over the first part of the press conference, Jackson? Here's why. The first part of it is talking about a potential spring game with Colorado. Now, on this podcast, we already talked about a potential Syracuse and Colorado spring game. And in case you missed that podcast, which was on last Sunday, I want to say, in summary, Syracuse and Colorado have both filed the necessary paperwork to have joint practices and a spring game sometime in April. It's now up to the NCAA to approve of it. All right. With that being said, Fran Brown is now asked what's different with spring ball this year compared to last year. Take a listen.
I'm just a little bit more understanding of time, making sure I'm managing the times ahead of stuff a little more. By me being a secondary coach last year, I was kind of locked in on just the DBs. Now I see it all a little bit more, understand more, and then I know what we need work on, right? I'm looking at certain positions to make sure that we can grow in those positions. I know the positions where we got leaders at, and I know the other positions, so it's important that I'm just doing my job.
Basically, my takeaway from that answer is Fran Brown last year was learning how to be a head coach, and not just the head coach of Syracuse, being a head coach, period. He has never been a head coach in college football. Syracuse was his first opportunity. If you recall, he came over from Georgia. So he mentioned the defensive backs and how he spent a lot of time with them a year ago. Well, he was the DB's coach at Georgia, and he was, learning how to be a head coach. He certainly made it look pretty easy in year one. But from that answer, my takeaway is he was learning how to be a head coach last year. Now he understands how to be a head coach this time around, and that's got to be frightening for college football. You're telling me last year Fran Brown was kind of learning on the job, and now he knows exactly what to do? Oh boy, you can only get better from here, right? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below on Fran Brown's answer to the differences between last year in spring ball and this year in spring ball. Moving on, Fran Brown is asked how he is managing the losses of all the great players Syracuse had a year ago. Take a listen.
Developing new good players and new leaders. It happens all the time. That's just football, right? Good players leave and new good players come. I can recruit, so I'm good. We be straight. It's part of the game, right?
Well, Fran Brown can definitely recruit, and he is certainly a confident man. He's never shied away from a challenge. He's also right. He's 100% right. When you build a successful program, this is what happens. You are going to lose really good players to the NFL, which is ultimately the goal. I mean, Kyle McCord, he was applying for another year, but decided to go pro anyway. LeQuint Allen decided to leave early. You had some veteran players that ran out of eligibility, The point is that good programs have really good players, and the good programs are able to restock every single year. I mean, you see it with the top college football teams every single season. Alabama loses a top defensive end, and then the next defensive end the following year is just as good, if not better, right? And for Syracuse, that's what we're trying to become. That program where, yeah, we're going to lose some big-time players, but the guys coming up are going to be big-time as well. So Fran Brown, he's really confident in this year's roster, so it seems. Fran Brown in the next question is asked about the schedule for next season and the toughest part about it. Fran Brown, what are your thoughts on the schedule?
I don't even care about that schedule. I see that when it comes. We locked in on now. I'm focused on March. March 21st, most important thing. I ain't worrying about that schedule. That schedule will handle itself when it comes. We have to handle our business for where we are now in order to be ready for that schedule. So I know we play game one, but because everybody always talking about it. Outside of that, I don't care about that schedule. I'm focused on spring football. I'm focused on us getting a 3.2 overall team GPA in the classroom. We had a 3.02 last year. When I first got here, we had a 2.97 overall as our team. So now we want a 3.2, right? So like that, I'm focused on that. I'm focused on the culture. I'm focused on Dart. I'm focused on spending as much time as I can with my wife and my daughter. Like the things that are extremely important now, I can't worry about who plays. That'll handle itself. We're going to replace all those players with other players.
The schedule is something that we focus on, but as far as Syracuse is concerned, and really any team in college football for that matter, it's late March. You can't really be too worried about the schedule ahead. Syracuse football does have a really tough schedule, I might add. But this is the time of the offseason where every team is really focused on self-improvement, figuring out systems. There's coaching changes across the country, figuring out new systems, new personnel. You're just trying to figure yourself out at this point in the year. So, yeah, Fran Brown saying we're not really worried about the schedule. How could you be worried about the schedule? That being said, he did talk about how he knows who they're playing in week one. That's Tennessee, neutral site in Atlanta. In fact, that there's somewhere in the facility where it's beat Tennessee with a clock for the game time on there. So they are at least a little bit worried about the schedule, but not too much. Just really the Tennessee in week one, like Fran Brown said. Now, later in the offseason, that's where teams will start focusing on actual game prep, right? About maybe a week or two before the Tennessee game, you start really preparing for Tennessee. And then when you're during the season, you start preparing for Notre Dame and Miami and all those teams that Syracuse football is going to face. But at this time in late March, you can't really worry about who you're playing in week 8. You just can't. You got to worry about getting better right here or right now, because if you're worried about week 8, you're not getting better right now. Now, coming up, we'll listen and react to more of what Fran Brown had to say in his first spring press conference. That's coming up next on Locked On Syracuse. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. And folks, if you enjoy this podcast, if you can just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and just tell one or two of your friends about the Locked On Syracuse podcast so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. On this podcast, we are listening to and reacting to basically everything that head coach Fran Brown had to say in his first spring ball press conference. Let's get right back into it. Fran Brown is asked about what he is looking for in his quarterback room. Of course, Syracuse has a quarterback battle going on now that Kyle McCord is gone. Rickie Collins, Jakari Williams, Michael Johnson Jr., Luke Carney, Rich Bellin, so many potential quarterbacks. Take a listen to what Fran Brown had to say about what he's looking for in his quarterback room.
To throw the ball to the players on their side of the ball to help us get points and to help us have one more point than the other team, right? Just to lead, to go take it and just go and do it, right? And have that confidence. And that confidence is earned through time, through reps. I want to see you throw an interception. I want to see what he does after throwing a pick or two and how he goes back in and how he responds to that, right? I want you to not worry about Kyle McCord or whatever. I don't care about none of that. Kyle's going now. Kyle about to go get drafted extremely high and go dominate somewhere else. I want to see you come in here and do it your way and lead the way. So, that's what I'm looking for. Leadership, completions, getting rid of the ball fast, things like that is what I worry about.
So Kyle McCord last season, he set the record for the most passing yards in a single season in ACC history, 4,779 yards. So you are not going to replace that. That is quite literally the most prolific season in the history of the ACC. I do like the comment that Fran Brown said about throwing interceptions in practice, making mistakes, because one thing that I think we might underestimate about Kyle McCord is his mental toughness. Kyle McCord had a game last season where he threw 5 interceptions. That was the Pitt game. It was a blowout loss, and it was perhaps the worst game of Kyle McCord's life. But do you want to know what Kyle McCord did after that game? Well, after that performance, Kyle McCord played in 6 more games. And in those 6 games, he threw 15 touchdowns. That's pretty good. But how many picks? 1. A touchdown interception ratio of 15-1 after that terrible Pitt game. That's called mental toughness. That's called short-term memory, not letting one really bad game define you and bouncing back the rest of the season. Of course, having an amazing bowl game, knocking off Miami. So that's important for whoever is going to be the starting quarterback this year. You might make mistakes. It's going to happen in practice. It could happen in a game. You're going up against some pretty good teams out there. Guess what? They're getting paid too in NIL money, just like you. Have that short-term memory and bounce back. Fran Brown now is asked about New Jersey State Troopers speaking with his team. It goes beyond football. Let's see what Fran Brown has to say.
Well, we got a program called Syracuse 60, which we guarantee after you graduate to get a job 60 days or less, soon as you graduate. You got 60 days for me to help you get a job. It's important that I get you a job making meaningful money inside of your major, right? And we got some criminal justice majors. I was a criminal justice major. They're always looking for good players. I told them, my team is second to none when it comes to class act guys, right? We sit in the first 2 rows. Our grades are up. Dudes understand and know. So I want to make sure they all know that you got an opportunity of going to be successful also here. These guys make 6 figures, so, hey, come talk to my team. If you're looking for some people to come and join and know what they're doing, I got a bunch of fine young men here that can come step right in and take y'all places y'all leave out.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It is really encouraging. I love how Fran Brown is prioritizing the importance of education and life beyond just football. It's not to squash anyone's dream. It's just to understand the reality. The reality is the odds of making the NFL are extremely low. You can even be a great college football player. You can be all conference and not even be invited to the NFL Combine. Jackson Meeks, 2nd team All ACC, not invited to the NFL Combine. I mean, are you kidding me? But that's my point. It's really difficult to make the NFL. But let's say you are fortunate enough to make the NFL. Well, the average career is only about 3.5 years. And yeah, you'll make good money, but chances are you're going to be done playing football by the age of 30, and you have a long life to live after that. So I am really glad that Fran Brown has a program designed to get these athletes jobs after school right away so that they can, as he said, make meaningful money after football. Next up, Fran Brown is asked about recruiting LSU quarterback Rickie Collins in the transfer portal this offseason.
He's a good kid. I got to meet with him for 2 days straight. Like, literally, the entire, all the time. I met with him, got to talk to him after that on the phone. I met with his mom, his family. I talked to some people in Baton Rouge outside that I know how he grew up, where he's from. Like, I know I get deep into the core of who they are. And I knew he would fit here. I think this would be the perfect fit for him to come and show who he is, what he's been about. Elite 11 quarterback, such as Kyle. I think now he's a lot younger when we got him than Kyle was, right? Kyle was older, going into his 4th year. This kid is, he got 3 years left to play football. I think he's he got a strong arm. He can run. He's very mobile also. So I'm happy to have him.
It's important to build relationships. It's even more important to build a positive relationship with your quarterback. I also think that is Fran Brown's way of saying, we're going to give Rickie Collins a shot. We're going to give him a chance to play in college football. Collins, before Syracuse, he has 7 career passing attempts in 2 years at LSU. He was a top-notch quarterback prospect in the class of 2023, but at LSU, there was no path to playing time. There just wasn't. In 2023, there was a quarterback there by the name of, I'm trying to remember his name, Jaden Daniels. Have you heard of him? Have you heard of him, Jaden Daniels? Was he the quarterback of the Washington Commanders in the NFC title game? Yeah, he was actually winning the Heisman Trophy with LSU in 2023. So Rickie Collins, obviously, you're not going to see the field there. And then in 2024, there's a guy by the name of Garrett Nussmeier, who, I don't know, Garrett Nussmeier just decided to stay for 2025, and he might be a first-round pick after the next college football season. So Rickie Collins comes to Syracuse, and he's going to get a chance to play. Next question, Fran Brown is asked about the process in naming his quarterback one.
We have a quarterback soon. I ain't with all that weight, and then I ain't got time to play mind games with my team for this half to like him and that half to like, now we're going to pick a quarterback, we're going to run with it, and y'all compete for 2 and 3. He going to be the guy until he say, nah, but we'll be fine, though. Like, we're going to be straight. I'm very happy for Kyle. Are you? Me too, man. I'm excited about Kyle. I mean, our guys, we're going to be fine. I'll handle that when the time comes. But let's talk about that pro day and how he was dominating out here throwing the ball. Kyle McCord should be picked in the first round. When he's talking and going through all this stuff, I keep seeing him say all these other names, and I will never bring another guy's name up, but, I mean, the kid is, like, legit. You know, around here, we call him, he's like baby Jesus.
2 takeaways there. All right. Number 1, no nonsense on naming his quarterback one. The Syracuse spring game, independent of Colorado and what happens with that, is on April 12th. We'll probably have our answer as far as who the quarterback one is for Syracuse. Then my guess is Rickie Collins, the transfer from LSU, who we just talked about in the last question. Second part, Kyle McCord, first round. I think Fran Brown in that answer was meaning to say that he's never going to bring someone else down to hype up his own player. For example, he's not going to sit there and say, hey, Jackson Dart, he stinks. You need to go and take Kyle McCord. No, he's just going to say Kyle McCord should be a first-round pick. You don't have to say that Jackson Dart isn't very good. We'll see if Kyle McCord is a first-round pick. Honestly, I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick. I think he's going to be in round 2 or round 3. I hope he goes as high as possible, except if it's the New York Jets. And I'm saying this as a New York Jet fan. I understand that. I believe Kyle McCord grew up a New York Jets fan. Anyone but the Jets. Don't go to the Jets. They're cursed. They're never going to win anything. Maybe Kyle McCord can change it if he actually does get drafted by the Jets. All right. Coming up, we'll react to more of what Fran Brown had to say in his first spring press conference. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Let's keep reacting to what head coach Fran Brown had to say in his first spring ball press conference. The next question, he is asked about how Syracuse football has changed since he has taken over.
We having fun. Yeah, we having fun, man. We just compete. When you guys get to watch them, like practice is done, look, they're still working on extra stuff. Like we want to get better. Like we understand there's not a lot of time in the day, so we just got to work. And we just focused on the day, though. Like we men that live for the day. We get up, we pray, we lock in on that day, we dominate that day. Or things will not go our way that day. Some of them will, and we learn from each other, and we push. We love each other. We're around each other. Like, you know, we're just trying to build. We're trying to become more and more. The more men we get on the field, we're going to be straight.
You know what's fun? Winning. You know what Syracuse football did in the first season with Fran Brown? They won a lot, 10-3. So, yeah, that's a big difference between this year and the years before Fran Brown. I also think one of the main differences between Fran Brown Syracuse and pre-Fran Brown Syracuse, there's a lot more swagger with Syracuse football. That's a good thing, I might add, because there's a new sense of confidence. Like, all right, we can get behind Fran Brown. He's no nonsense. He's tough. He's got an acronym, DART, we can all get behind. So there is a new swagger with Syracuse football that I have seen in recent years prior to Fran Brown. And back to the schedule, it's really difficult. And FanDuel, we talked about this, the over-under for Syracuse is only 5.5 regular season wins, so right on the border of making a bowl or not. Let's be honest. If prior Syracuse coaches were the head coach right now over the last 15 years, do you really think that Syracuse would have an over-under of 5.5? My guess is it would be a lot lower. But Fran Brown, they're giving him a lot of respect and saying, hey, yeah, you have a really difficult schedule. We still think you're a borderline bowl team, and I do think they will go slightly over 5.5. So that's really the big difference. There's more swagger with Syracuse football now, and hopefully in the years to come, it will translate to more wins. We saw that, of course, in year one. Next question, Fran Brown is asked about the potential Syracuse football 2025 draft picks.
Dart, and they all tough. Meek's tough. OG, tough. Nobody can catch like that, right? Cinco, tough, could play all 3 positions. Clarence Lewis could play all 3 positions. Secondary, also ran a 4.48 here at our thing. 37-inch vert. He did a lot of good things. What's my other guy? Our left tackle was one of the biggest ones in the conference. Only gave up 1 sack the entire year. Played every snap the entire season also. So, you know, having that when it came to Savion Washington was like amazing to have that. Marlo Wax ran a 4.63 here. Extremely fast, 6 foot, all-time leading tackler here. He's been working on his body from when I got here all the way through, and you can see the work that he was putting in. Justin Barron's just becoming a backer, so his better football at that position to be ahead of him. He should be drafted also. Who else am I missing? There's different guys that was there. That might be the main. Oh, and then the toughest one of them all. 2 of them left, but the toughest one, LeQuint Allen, he better get picked in like 2nd, 3rd round if they want to win. And then Fidel Diggs, you know, he don't accept no. Like, he just works extremely hard. See him go out there and run a 4.57, 225. I think he did it 28 times. I mean, so, like, those guys compete, right? Anytime it's time for us to do something, they're there, they want to do it, they like to compete. I think that you'll be getting a bunch of tough kids that already went and proved you wrong when you said they was going to be, like, 13th in the conference last year. They made us be number 4, right, overall in the conference. And just different pieces of it right there. Like, so without them, we wouldn't be where we are right now.
That is a long way of Fran Brown just hyping up his guys. And that's what you are supposed to do in that situation, because it's in the best interest of your program to have as many players as possible go from college to the pros, regardless of the sport that you are talking about. If Syracuse football has 5, 6, 7 players drafted in this year's draft, guess what? That helps recruiting tremendously, because you want to show recruits that, hey, under my leadership, I'm speaking for Fran Brown, look, we send guys to the NFL. And if we don't send you to the NFL, guess what? We have a whole plan of how we're going to get you a job making good money immediately after college. So this is just Fran Brown hyping up his own guys to the media. And we just have to hope, like I kind of said with Kyle McCord, that he goes as high as possible. We have to hope that as many Syracuse players as possible go in the NFL draft, and hope that they go as high as humanly possible. Next question. Fran Brown is asked about 2 specific plays that changed the whole season for Syracuse football, and not in a good way. 4th and 9 against Stanford and 4th and 1 against Boston College. Here's why Fran Brown has Syracuse wearing those shirts.
When we win, we make those 2 plays. What we was playing in last year, where we at? Conference championship. We beat them, then, you know what I'm saying? Whoever it may be, I don't want to say, oh, then they try to get out. I don't care if they get out. But we're in the conference championship. We win that. And then we get a chance to be in the playoffs. So it's that much. You know, I don't know what play it'll be. So I want to make sure that I remind them of 2 plays changed our season. Right? Pitt beat the bull crap out of us. Outside of that, we
Apologies for the audio there. It was a little bit low. I'll explain it to you. Basically, Fran Brown is saying that those 2 plays changed Syracuse's season. And at the end of the quote, he says that Pitt beat the bullcrap out of them. He's not wrong. They did. That was the one real blowout loss for Syracuse football a year ago. But back to the crux of the quote here. Think about it this way. If Syracuse beats Stanford and they beat Boston College, those were close games that Syracuse should have won those games. They were the better team, but they just did not win. They didn't perform like the better team in those games. If they had, though, they would have been Indiana. That's who they could have been. They were very close to being Indiana, 11-1 in the ACC. And like Fran Brown said, the opportunity to play in the ACC title game, you win that, you go to the college football playoff. And even if they lost that, they're probably still in the college football playoff. We saw SMU at 11-1 lose the conference title game and not be penalized. Good. You shouldn't be penalized in your conference game. But also keep in mind, and of course, we only want to talk about what could have been in a positive way, but also there is a what could have been in a negative way, which is, Syracuse needed overtime to beat UNLV. They had a linebacker drop a game-ending interception in that game. They needed overtime to beat Virginia Tech, and they needed a big comeback in that one. Same thing with Miami when they stormed back from 21 down. So at the end of the day, I don't think Syracuse football last year got lucky. I don't think they got unlucky with their record. I think they finished exactly what they were. They were a 9-3 regular season team, and they ended up winning their bowl game. But that's the fine line in football, is that a bounce here or a bounce there. You could be 7-5. You could be 11-1. That much. That's all it takes in football. Final question to listen and react to. Fran Brown is asked about Zeed Haynes retiring from football. Take a listen.
Chilling, he's school, he getting a degree. He ain't playing right now. He ain't playing no more. He gonna chill, he put the cleats up, but he's gonna dominate the work world. Just a hell of a guy, great kid. We're excited about it. But that's why we got Tyshawn Russell. You might not have seen. You want to talk about the guy not there, but you didn't want to talk about Tyshawn Russell, how good he's doing, and Jalen Ormsby. And you know who we still got? Boyd Payne. You know what I'm saying? So we got those guys, and Gil, he was at the track meet today. You know what's crazy? Our 4x1 team, 3 football players are running in that. Malachi Coleman, Malachi James, and Darryl Gill. So you guys told me you got to start to ask the right questions. You over here worrying about somebody that's not playing, or you could have got more information on that. You got to let them. I'm gonna end up doing your job if you keep that up there.
look, someone had to ask, and that reporter had to fall on the sword. Zeed Haynes, of course, it comes out, I believe, right before or right after that press conference that he was retiring from football and he wasn't on the spring roster. That's a question that you have to ask. Fran Brown, he kind of showed up the reporter a little bit and answered it in a different way, hyping up other players. I think the better way to frame that question in the future would be something along the lines of, with Zeed Haynes not being on the roster or retiring from football, how do you see the offense replacing him moving forward? And that would allow Fran Brown to hype up other players while also potentially giving you an answer as far as what happened with Zeed Haynes. But look, someone had to ask it. What was up with Zeed Haynes? And Fran Brown showed up the reporter a little bit. I hope that reporter is okay. So that about does it for everything that Fran Brown basically had to say in his first press conference. Of course, we skipped the first part of it, talking about a Syracuse-Colorado spring game. As far as what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the future, tomorrow, it'll be Poll Friday, just a mini podcast over under 4.5 transfers that Syracuse basketball brings in this offseason. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. You can find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.